Good morning and welcome to Rocco Baby Crochet. In today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how I make these pouches just to hold a couple of hooks, a pen, anything you need for a current project that you're working on. So I've got a little wooden heart button here and I've put a Rocco Baby label down here. So then when we open up the case, what have we got in the inside? So we've got some stitch markers up here on the top. And then we've got a little pouch here which has got enough room for a tape measure. I've got my needle case, my scissors will go in there as well. And then I've got my 2 hooks. I've never used more than 2 hooks on a project, so I've just sized it for the 2 hooks that I use the most. So I've got a 5 and a 4mm hook and room for a little pen. So it's really handy. Everything you need for your current piece of work, projects that you're working on, you've got enough room in this gorgeous case. So let's show you what you need to make it. Just pop this out of the way. So to make my hook and notions case, I used you're going to need 1 skein of 100 grams of double knit. So I've used James C. Brett and it's the driftwood. It's the pink and grey one and it's shade DW07 if you want to use the same colours as me. So you're going to need 1 ball of that. You will have some left over. It probably uses about 75 of the 100 grams up, but I've fallen in love with this. I think it looks gorgeous, especially in the feather stitch that we've used to make the case. You're going to need a 4.5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, a couple of stitch markers, a button and a darning needle. Okay, so let's move everything out of the way and we'll get going. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also follow us on Facebook. There's a group over there where we're all chatting and showing pictures of what we've been making and things like that. So head over on there, and we are on Instagram as well. But hit like and subscribe if you enjoy this video, and we'll get into making the case now. Okay, so we're going to begin making the actual case. So what you want to do is take your yarn, make a slip knot, pull on your working yarn to tighten it up onto your hook, and then you want to make a chain of 34. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 and 34. Now if you're a little bit unsure how to make chains and things like that, I'll leave my videos that cover that in the link, a link to those in the description of this video. So once you've got your chain of 34, what you want to do is we're going to work row 1, which is a row of half treble crochets. So that's UK terminology of half treble crochets. In the US that would be half double crochets. So we want to skip the first chain from the hook, which is here, and work directly into the second chain. Now I like to work into these back bumps here because it gives you a nicer finish. If you're a little bit uncomfortable doing that, then you can work into these loops here. It's fine, it just gives you a nicer finish if you do work into the back bumps. So the back bumps are the ones that run all the way down the middle there. If you turn it to the side, you can see the raised edge of them. So for half treble crochet, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the second chain from the hook, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Yarn over, move into your next stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And you're just going to continue that all the way down, and you will have a total of 33 half treble crochets at the end of round 1. Now if you are new to crochet, make sure that you pop your stitch marker into that first stitch, because we want to keep these edges nice and straight, so it makes it easy to find it when you come to the end of your row. Okay, so if you make your way along the chain, placing 1 half treble crochet in every stitch along, and I'll meet you when I finish my first row. So if you like to hit pause. Just come to the end of row 1 and I've got a full row of half treble crochets. So at the end of each row you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. The chain 1 isn't going to count as any kind of stitch. So into this very first stitch along you're going to place 1 half treble crochet, and then you're going to chain 1, skip 1 here, and then work into your next one, another half treble crochet, and this just forms the base for us to build the feather stitch in. Chain 1, skip 1, and a half treble crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, half treble crochet, and you're going to do that all the way along for row 2. And when you get to the end, your very last stitch should be a half treble crochet. So I'll meet you when I'm coming towards the end if you'd like to hit pause. Okay, so I'm at my very last stitch and I've chained 1, I'm going to skip 1, and then I'm going to go back into this last stitch of row 2 where my stitch marker is, and place my last half treble crochet. Chain 1 and turn, and now we're going to start to work the feather stitch. So you're going to start every row by that chain 1, turn, and then into this very first stitch here you're always going to place a half treble crochet. So place that half treble crochet, pop your stitch marker back through those 2 loops just so you don't lose it, and then you're going to chain 1. Now to work the feather stitch, what we're going to do is a series of stitches together. So first of all you're going to yarn over and you're going to go down into this chain space here and pull up a loop. So you want to make sure that the height of your stitches is staying the same so that your hook is horizontal to your work. You want to make sure that your working yarn from your ball of wool is nice and loose as well, so your tension is also nice and loose. And then what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over again and we're going to work down where we skipped the stitch into the first row. So down into here, insert your hook, pull up a loop and pull it up again so it's up at the same height, and then you're going to yarn over and move across to your next chain space on the row below. And you should now have 7 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Yarn over and pull through all 7. And then you're going to chain 1. And that's your first feather stitch. So now what you do is you yarn over into that same space that you've just placed your last stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over, go back down to your chain space below, pull up a loop, making sure that you've got that height there that's the same, and then move across to your next chain space into row 2 and pull up a loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull them all off. And chain 1. Yarn over, so you're going into your chain space from row 2 and pull up a loop. Yarn over, go down into your chain space from row 1. Pull up that loop, making sure you pull it nice and tall. Yarn over, move across into the chain space from row 2. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 7 and chain 1. yarn over, back into that chain space in row 2, pull up a loop, yarn over, down into your chain space from row 1, pull up a loop, yarn over, move across to your next chain space, pull up a loop, and you'll have 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull them all off. And chain 1. So into that same stitch, pull up a loop, down to the chain space in row 1, pull up a loop and move across 1 and pull up a loop. It's a really fun little pattern once you get the hang of it. And chain 1. So I'm just going to do row 3. This is row 3 and I'm just going to do row 4 with you. Chain 1. Just getting some more yarn. You don't want to have your yarn too tight, because if you tension it's too tight when you're crocheting, you're not going to get the height which makes this part of the stitch. Your work's going to start pulling and things like that. So I literally, like, the wool is there but I'm not holding it or pulling it, I'm just letting the hook pull it to the height I need. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up the loop, yarn over, drop down into the chain space of row 1, yarn over, pull up another loop, yarn over and go into the next chain space of row 2, yarn over and pull off all 7 loops, chain 1. Yarn over, pull up a loop in that same chain space, yarn over, drop down into row 1, pull up a loop, yarn over, move across 1 chain space in row 2, yarn over and pull through all 7 and chain 1. It's really easy. I love this pattern because it really works up quite quickly and it looks so lovely when it's done. Gives a nice thickness, so if you're doing baby blankets or cushion covers, anything like that, it's lovely to use. And it does work up, like I say, really, really quickly. Chain 1. So I'm going to pull up a loop, down into row 1, pull up a loop and move across 1, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 7, chain 1. Once we've got this row out of the way, it's even easier because we're just literally going into chain spaces, so we don't need to find the gaps from row 1. We're just working into the chain spaces, which are all really obvious to see. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over, this is my last one, pull up a loop, yarn over, drop down into my chain space of row 1, pull up a loop, yarn over and into that last chain space that I've got, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 7 and chain 1. And I haven't got any more room for another feather stitch, so I'm just going to yarn over and place a half treble crochet into the top of this very last stitch here. Put through. I'll just move my stitch marker up. So for row 4, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. That's your first row of feather stitches. It looks great already. So into this very first stitch here, like always, in every row that you're going to do, we're going to place a half treble crochet. Replace your stitch marker so you know that that's your very first stitch, and chain 1. That's exactly the same for every round. So now what you want to do is, this is your chain space here. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. Yarn over, and then we're going to drop down into this chain space below. Pull up a loop. And then yarn over, move across one chain space. Pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Chain 1. Into this same chain space you've just worked, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, drop down into the chain space below it, pull up another loop, and then move across to your next chain space and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops and chain 1. So into the first same chain space, pull up a loop, drop down to the chain space below, pull up a loop and move across a chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over and draw through all 7 loops. It's really easy, isn't it? But it gives a lovely effect to your work. It's really nice for this hook case as well, so it protects your hooks if you drop it or anything like that, because of the thickness of this stitch. You're not going to damage your hooks or into there, drop down one and go across one. Best thing is just keep your tension lovely and loose, and then use the height of your stitches, so you're pulling it up all the time so your hook is horizontal like that. So just want to show you the end of this row, and then I'll leave you to make the rest of this part of the case yourself. In one, just get a bit more yarn. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. I love this this yarn, but if you're using plain yarn as well, just with solid coloured yarn, this stitch also looks lovely using that. So we're nearly at the end now. So I'm just going to work my last feather stitch, so I've got enough slack. So here we go. So I'm going to pop yarn over and pull up a loop in that same chain space, yarn over, drop a chain space below, pull up a loop, and then into that chain space there that I created right at the beginning, and pull up my last loop, chain 1, and then half treble crochet into my last stitch. Take out my stitch marker and I'll move it up as I go up. So that is row 4 completed. So you're going to continue this until you've got a total of 24 rows. So hit pause and come back to me once you've finished row 24. Don't tie off or anything like that, because we have still got one more row to do after row 24. So if you hit pause and come back to me when you're at that point, okay? Okay, so I've just finished my 24th row. So I just want to show you a couple of things. The easiest way to count it is if you remember that your first 2 rows were your foundation onto your feathers. So you start in row 3 with your first feather. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 and 24. So that's the easiest way to count it, just in case you're a little bit lost in the pattern. Just remember that you start your first feathers on row 3. So row 25, you want to have chained 1 and turn your work, and you're just going to place 1 half treble crochet in every stitch along, and you should have a total of 33 stitches still. So you're working into the chain, you're working into the chain ones as well, so they'll be a little bit tighter to get your hook into, but make sure you're just going underneath the 2 loops to the chain. Okay, so if you want to hit pause and make your way around, and just remember that you should still have 33 stitches going all the way across, and I'll meet you when I finish my row 25. So I've just finished all my half treble crochets. Don't forget that's UK terminology, and you want to chain 1 once you've done that, and grab your scissors. Oh, just dropped everything, sorry. Grab your scissors and snip yourself off a loose piece of yarn, so it's about 5 or 6 inches, and pull tight on that chain 1 just to knot it, and that is your first panel completed. Let me just show you how pretty this stitch is. Let me zoom in for you. Look at that. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So for the second panel, I've already gone ahead and I've almost finished mine, but what you're going to do is you're going to make exactly the same thing, just shorter. So you're going to chain 34 again, and then you're going to place a half treble crochet in every chain across, starting from the second chain from the hook, and then you're going to do your row of half treble, chain 1, skip 1, half treble, chain 1, skip 1. If you need to rewind the video, please do so. And I am just about finished with my second panel. So this has taken me to row, let's double check it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the only thing I've got left to do on this panel now is to chain 1, turn it, and I'm just going to work my row of half treble crochets. Again, I'll have 33 half treble crochets to work across the top of here. So if you want to go ahead and make your second panel, it's made exactly the same as the first, apart from it's 15 rows in total. So I stop the feather pattern at row 14, and row 15 is a row of half treble crochets. So if you want to meet me back when you get to that point, and I'll show you how we put the hook case together. Okie dokie, see you shortly. If you want to hit pause. Okay, so I've just finished my 33 half treble crochets going across the top, and what I want to do is I need to make a little loop for us to close the case with a button. So I'm just going to chain 15, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15, and then I'm just going to slip stitch it into this side stitch here, so just underneath where it's coming out of. Pull through to slip stitch it on, chain one, cut your yarn, I've already cut mine, and pull through your loose tail and pull firmly on that chain one to secure it as a knot, and that's what we're going to use to fasten our case to the button. So what we need to do now is we just need to pop the case together. Okay, so I've placed my two panels together. So I've got my hook here, my hoop here, sorry, that's going to go over and close the button, which is going to be up here. And I've got my two tail ends from my foundation chains here. So I'm just going to tie a little knot into them so they're tied together. It just makes it a little bit more secure just before I weave in my ends. And then I'm just going to weave in these 4 loose ends that I've got here, and then I'll show you how we sew it all together. Okay, so I've tied in my loose ends, and I've threaded my needle with my yarn ready to sew it all together. But what I've done is I count to the middle here so I know where my fold is going to be. And the way I do that is I count in feather stitches from both sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's my middle. So I've just put a little stitch marker here just so I know that that is going to be my middle of it. So I've threaded my yarn onto my darning needle, and I'm just going to make sure everything is lined up correctly, and I'm happy with that. Now you can pin it in place if you want to. I'm not going to do, but if you prefer to, that's fine. And I'm just going to start in this corner here. And I'm not whip stitching this one. What I'll do is I'll just make a little knot in this first one here, but for the rest of it I'm going through the front and the back, in and out, in and out, in and out, rather than a whip stitch. So you want your stitches to be quite close together. Just take your time doing this, so make your way all the way down this edge. Just like that until you get to your corner, and then I'll show you how I go around my corner and form the pockets for all the different little notions you've got and for your hooks. So I've got the hooks with the silicone handles in, so I like my hook spaces to be a little bit bigger than if you used the hooks without the ergonomic handles. So just keep stitching your two panels together, and when you hit the corner, come back to me. Okay, so if you want to press pause. So I am just at my corner space, and what I like to do is just place one going along the edge that way. And then turn my project, and you just have to perhaps just catch the top bump so that it doesn't just come back out on itself, but going into the same stitch again, just so each corner has got 2 stitches in it, just to hold it a bit more secure. And I'm just going to sew across just up until where I've got this ridge of the feather stitch before my stitch marker. So if you want to hit pause until you get to that point, and then I'll meet you when I'm there. Okay, so I've sewn up to here, and now I want to sew up this ridge here just before I hit my stitch marker, and this is going to be the pocket for the tape measure, for your stitch markers, for your darning needles. So instead of carrying on going across, I'm just going to form that pocket, and I'm literally just going to sew up where the ridge to the feather stitch is, because then you'll lose the stitches in the texture of the stitch and it won't be visible to anybody. So I'm just going to go all the way up to the top. Sewing is not my strong point, so if I'm okay making this, anybody's okay making this. It's definitely not one of my skills. But you should find where you're popping your needle, it matches on the other side, so you're not forcing your needle through any stitches, because the pattern should just naturally line up. Nearly there. So once I get to the top here, just go into the stitch there, so just underneath where my chains are. And that'll be my last stitch there for that pocket. But what I'll do is I'll make my way back down so it's double stitched. So back down to this point here. So I'll meet you when I get to there. Okay, so I've just got back down to the bottom of what my case going to be my case, and I just want to sew across to the next ridge of feather stitches. Remembering this part here that I'm sewing across now is just going to be the center of the case. And then I'm going to do exactly the same following this line here. And then we're going to make our pockets for our cases. So I'm going to sew up this ridge and sew back down it and go across, sew up and go across. So I'll just finish this one and I'll meet you back once I've got back to the bottom, and I'll show you how I size it for my hooks. Okie dokie, so if you want to hit pause. Okay, so I'm at the point now where I'm going to make the pockets for my hooks, and because I'm going to have this as a case just to hold the hooks and the notions that I need for each project, it's not going to hold all of my hooks. I've picked my two most used hooks, so I've got a 5mm one. So I pop that in and it's taking up 3 ridges, that one. So I know I need to sew across another 3 ridges and then up and back down. And then this is my second most used style of hook, and this style of hook I need to use up 2 ridges, so I'll sew across another 2 up and back down, and then back across and up here, and that'll leave me enough room for a pen as well. Okay, so if you measure yours out to where your hooks sit comfortably, and then you sew them up like you did the pockets and the side seams, and I'll meet you when I've finished all my sewing up of the pockets. So if you want to hit pause, and I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so I've finished sewing all my pockets together. So I've got this big one here for my notions, and then I've got 2 here for hooks, and then I've kept 1 for a pen. So I'm planning to use mine just to keep with one piece of work. So that's, I've never used more than 2 hooks on a project. So I've picked my most used hooks. So before I put the button on, I'm going to fill my pouch. I'm just going to fill my case, because then I know that the button's in the right place. So these are all the things that I like to have with me when I'm working on something. That's my pen. Tape measure can go into that pocket. My scissors, I'm going to put them that way up, I think. And then I'll put my needles and things in there. So I've just threaded a little bit of cotton. I'm going to grab myself a button and we'll sew that on. I can't wait to use this. I've put a Rocco Baby label on the front of mine as well, so if you wanted to, if you've got one of those or with your own brand on. So I'm just going to fold it over, so that's what it looks like with my Rocco Baby label on. It's lovely. And I'm just going to make sure when it's closed where the button comes up to. So my button's going to sit around there. So then I'm just going to sew my button on. And then you're all done. I hope you've enjoyed this project. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. And if you do make one of these pouches, head on over to Facebook. Pop pictures on there. I love seeing what you're all making. So I'm just going to finish off popping this button on, and then my case is ready to go. Okie dokie, so I'll leave you to it. Enjoy. Bye.